But tonight, we have an important question for Democrats and their friends in the media who are calling the emergency at our southern border a manufactured crisis. This is an important question. You know, we've been asking, is this in the best interest for America? Is this good for our country? Is this good for our economy? Is this good for Homeland Security? Here's our question. All of you that say it's a manufactured crisis, what would you say to the families, the thousands of them, that lost loved ones, moms and dads, sons and daughters, at the hands of illegal immigrants? Would you call their loss a manufactured crisis? Because there are thousands of these families. And joining us now tonight are 9 brave Americans whose loved ones were killed by illegal immigrants, the ones you're saying manufactured crisis, including Wendy and DJ Corcoran. Their son Pierce, 22 years old, was just killed this past December 29th by a suspected illegal immigrant in Knoxville. He was driving on the wrong side of the road, wrong side of the highway. 22 years old. We're also joined by Laura Wilkinson. Her son Joshua was beaten and strangled and set aflame on fire by a classmate who was in this country illegally. Joshua was 18 years old. Then we have Steve Ronnebeck. His son Grant, he was raising money for college. He worked overnight in a convenience store, shot by an illegal immigrant robbing the store where Grant was working overnight, the midnight shift. Agnes Giboney is also with us. Her son, Ronald Da Silva, was shot in a driveway by an illegal immigrant gang member who had previously been deported. And let's introduce Michelle Root. Her daughter, Sarah, was killed by an illegal immigrant who was drunk driving, and he disappeared after posting bail. Why did he get bail? We're also joined by Mary Ann Mendoza. Her son, Police Sergeant Brandon Mendoza, was killed by a drunk driver in the country illegally, an immigrant in a head-on collision. Also with us, Maureen Maloney. Her son, Matthew. Denise was literally killed by an illegal alien who was drunk driving. And lastly, we introduced Sabine Durden. Her son, Dominic, was killed in a collision by an illegal immigrant who had 2 prior DUI convictions, and Dominic was a 911 dispatcher. Maureen and Sabine are angel moms who serve as directors for advocates for victims of illegal immigrant alien crime. And they all join us. Thank you all for coming. Anything worse? Just a general question. I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. I don't think there's anything worse than losing your son or daughter, right? It's not natural. We don't bury our kids, right? And I've met many mothers and fathers of servicemen and women. They go through this, but they know they're going into a risk. When you find out that it's somebody that was already in the criminal justice system and they're here illegally, in your case, you're like the newest member of this club that nobody wants to be a part of. And you just lost your son, right, Wendy, on the 29th?
Right. 29th of December.
First, how are you guys holding up? This is still new to you.
I think we're still numb, still in shock about it to a degree, and then finding out so many people are hurting over the same thing. I mean, it's just
painful.
Yeah, it is very painful.
Every day you wake up with it's there.
The reality hits every morning that it is real.
That's the hard time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest time in the morning when you wake up.
When you wake up, you feel like you're going to wake up from a bad dream, and then the tears come and you realize it's real.
14 years the driver in this case was in the country?
Had every opportunity to do the right thing and come here legally and become a productive citizen, but he chose not to.
And what about his past criminal record?
They
won't reveal it? What?
Well, they're saying that there is no criminal record. That's how he was able to stay here for this long, because there was nothing.
Yeah.
That they know of.
Laura, I've known you now. You've done a lot of interviews with me over the years. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Your son was only 18 years old.
Yes.
Brutally beaten, murdered, set ablaze.
Yes.
Tell us that story.
It absolutely is a nightmare. You know, I sent Josh to school one day and he just never came home, and I started looking around for him, and I finally found his truck parked next to a dumpster and called police, and they came and called me over, and everything that was his shoes and stuff were in that dumpster. We waited in that parking lot all evening, and finally, they arrested a suspect. He came back to the crime scene, and they arrested him there. And when they took him down to the jail, he had Joshua's truck key in his pocket. And finally, about 24 hours later, he told us where we could find Josh. And
he'd been set afire after being brutally beaten.
Yep, he bound him up with 13 ropes around his neck and to the back of his hands behind his back and through a belt loop, and then to his feet, tied him up like so he could carry him. And then he put him in Joshua's truck and then drove around and bought.
How long ago was this for you?
2010.
It doesn't get easier, does it?
No.
Still, you wake up just like the Corcorans.
I feel for them because it's not, they know the story, but I just know that it's not their story yet, and that comes in time, and then the really pain begins when the shock wears off and you realize that that's forever. I mean, you go
every
home
Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every birthday.
When you first go home, there are his books and there are socks on the floor, and it takes a long time to really get your heart and head in the same place to know that they're not coming back,
Steve, I've known you now also a couple of years, and I've interviewed you a number of times. Amazing kid you had. Yeah. Your son was 21 years old, Grant. He's working in a convenience store doing the graveyard shift, midnight to 8 shift, and in comes a guy, and his story gets very interesting. So he was robbing the store, right?
Well, he wasn't actually robbing the store. He came in to buy a pack of cigarettes and dumped a jar of change out on the counter. Grant went to start counting the change and wasn't counting it fast enough. So the man said, "What, you're not going to give me my cigarettes?" And Grant said, "Hey, I got to count the change." And the man produced a gun. Grant did everything he was supposed to do. He went ahead and gave him the cigarettes. As soon as the man had the cigarettes, he went ahead and executed Grant, shot him point blank in the face. And that's when he robbed the store. He came around the counter, grabbed 2 more packs of cigarettes.
It's all on video.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be like watching that video. I'm sure horrific for you. It gets worse, though, because this same illegal immigrant had held a young woman hostage, brutally raped her, had been in the criminal justice system.
Yep.
How did he ever get out, and how did he not get deported?
He was able to plead down his crimes to felony burglary and just get probation.
But he kidnapped and raped a woman for 10 days, repeatedly.
They filled her full of heroin, so they said, oh, she's a drug addict, so she wasn't a reliable witness. And
no, she was drugged.
Yeah.
It makes it more painful knowing that they had him. Knowing that if they did this is a big part of this thing here. There are too many instances where the government, we have them. We identify them. We put them in jail. Then we'll talk about sanctuary cities and states. Then they won't hand them over to ICE, so they aid and abet them in their next crime. And to me, some of these guys have blood on their hands by not following the law. It's so hard to hear these stories because all the promise, your kids are so young, 22, 21, 18. And I'm looking at your son, Agnes Gibney here. Her son's Ronald. This picture, by the way, if I can just walk over without getting in the shot, that's him at his wake.
This is Ronald in the coffin. This is the reality that I live with. And unlike, this is not manufactured, I want to tell the Democrats this is not manufactured. And I want to call on our president to please implement E-Verify. Please stop the incentive for illegal aliens to come to our country and punish employers. This guy that murdered my son will be coming out of prison next year. My peace and quiet will be taken away from me and my family because I don't know if he's going to come after me. Why should he live?
So he's getting released.
He's getting released. But California being a sanctuary state.
This happened in 2002. When you kill an innocent young man, why do you ever get out of jail?
Exactly. He's going to get to enjoy his family, his children. And one other point that I wanted to make, when Nancy Pelosi said one time that her grandchild was having a birthday, and he said his birthday wish was he just wanted to have brown skin. Well, my grandchildren Ronald's children would also like to make a wish to have their dad back.
I do. I mean, I look at that picture. He's a young...
I mean, look at him. I miss that smile. I miss his bear hugs. I miss everything about him. My life changed completely because of this. And what's even more offensive is that I'm a legal immigrant. We came to follow the law. We came to the right channels to this country. Why isn't my country and these politicians standing up for me and for the American citizens of this country? No, they stand up with illegal aliens and criminals.
You're all the faces. I want America, take a look, pan back, and these are the faces of a manufactured crisis. That's what the media says about all of you and all of your experiences. Manufactured? These are real lives. Now, look at your beautiful daughter. You have a picture, and this is Michelle Root. Your daughter's name is Sarah.
Correct.
How old is she?
She was 21 when she was killed. She had just graduated from college with a 4.0 bachelor's in criminal investigations. She was hit and killed that night after celebrating on her way home. Edwin Mejia, who came over unaccompanied at age 16, was driving, not even his vehicle, street racing, going 70+ miles an hour. Blood alcohol of 0.241. When he rear-ended my daughter's SUV.
The legal limit's 0.08, and he's at 2.4?
0.241.
Wow.
And they like to say it was 3 times the legal limit. No, he's 19. He should have never had any alcohol in him.
And when did this happen to you?
It was 2016. January 31st is what we consider her death date because she was brain dead when they got her to the emergency room. However, being the lovely child that she is.
An all-American, young, beautiful 4.0 student, her whole life and career ahead of her?
Correct. And she was an organ donor, and we saved 6 additional people that night with her organs. But Edwin Mejia made bond because the judge had set a low bond, and he fled. So he's out there.
I'm so sorry to all of you. I am so sorry. This has got to stop.
Yes.
That's what the show is about. I want people to see what this manufactured crisis is not manufactured.
Correct.
She had a right to live. Your son had a right to live. Your son had a right to live. Your children had a right to live. You know, I have known you now, Marianne Mendoza, for a long time. Look at, he is really handsome. He looks like you. Got his good looks. He was a police officer.
Yes. He was. He wanted to be a police officer since he was very, very young. And on May 11, 2014, he had spent Mother's Day with me and went into work and was going to come back for dessert. He had come for dinner, and he said, Mom, you know, got too busy, can't come in. So in the early hours of May 12, 2014, he was on his way home from work, and an illegal alien, repeat criminal, had gone over 35 miles the wrong way on 4 different freeways, 3-time legal limit drunk, high on meth. And his family let him drive repeatedly, leave a house and keep going back and forth. And he slammed head on into my son. And I got a call at 2:45 in the morning from Afghanistan from a fellow Mesa officer who was also Air National Guard telling me, Mom, he's been in a terrible accident. And I kept trying to call his phone and he wasn't answering. And then my worst nightmare, the doorbell rang, and it was Mesa Police to come and take me to the hospital, and Brandon died.
I've tried to put myself in your shoes. I think parents can do that. This is the one thing I don't think you recover from.
No.
I don't care how strong you think you are. You're not going to recover from this.
No. And this is not a manufactured crisis. This is where I have to go for his birthday. Ugh. This is where I have to go for Christmas, for every holiday. And just as recent as, and Michelle was at my house in Phoenix, I got 3 people contacting me 4.5 years later talking about the things that my son had done for them. This has been a continual for 4.5 years. So this wasn't just a loss to me, Sean. This is a loss to my whole
community. Does the media ask you for interviews, many in the media? I know I've interviewed you many times, and a number of you've been on many times.
You don't fit your narrative.
Right.
You don't get it. They don't want to hear the story.
No.
And then they arrogantly go on to, you know how I feel about.
Yeah. One more picture.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
This is 330 miles of our southern border in Arizona. 330 miles. And if the liberal politicians think this is going to keep criminals out of our country, they're insane. Insane.
Insane, insensitive, cruel, callous, and in the sense, sanctuary cities and states, from that moment forward that they release people and don't deport them and follow the law, they're aiding and abetting the next crime, in my opinion.
I agree.
We're going to get back to you guys when we get back. Also, we'll have more with the families after this break, and we'll also be joined. You heard about Officer Singh out in California. His brother will also join us, and that, of course, just happened in recent weeks, killed by an illegal immigrant over the Christmas holiday. Do you want to tell these people, you people in the media, you pathetically lazy people that are way overpaid, you want to keep going with your talking point? This is manufactured. Hey, Nancy and Chuck, is this a manufactured crisis to you? You want to come down and meet these parents? You're welcome in the studio. I'll bring them all back and you can talk to them. Quick break, right back. Welcome back to Hannity. Tonight you are hearing the very painful stories. Angel families, moms and dads that have lost their loved ones to illegal immigrant crime, you know, the manufactured crisis, like the Singh family. They lost their 33-year-old police officer, son, brother, Ronald Singh, just a day after Christmas when he was killed during a traffic stop in Northern California. The suspect, Gustavo Perez Arriaga, had a long criminal record and suspected gang ties, but California's sanctuary policy protected him from being handed over to ICE, which would have meant he would have been deported. Officer Singh was an immigrant, a legal immigrant, who came from Fiji, came to this country as all immigrants do legally because they want a better life, the hope, the dreams for themselves, their families, their kids, to raise a family. But it was cut short by a criminal alien who never should have been here in the first place and who was in the criminal justice system and should have been long deported. Joining us now is talk about his life is his brother. Reggie Singh is with us. Reggie, thanks for being with us. I know this is still fresh. This is raw for you. You met with the president yesterday. You were in Texas where we were. What did the president say?
Yes. The president just wanted to know how the family was doing, if there's anything he could do to help out. We had a good conversation about Ronell. He asked some questions. That was it.
Yeah. Your family came here legally. It takes a long time, right? You got to go through. It takes some time to get here.
Yes, we came here in 2003. It takes about 10 years, I would say, to get you to go through the whole process. They do a medical background check, criminal background. If everything's fine, then the process is proceeded to the next step. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a process, and then you come here. In Ronell's case, we were green card holders for 5 years. Then he was asked to get his citizenship in order to become a law enforcement
and he always wanted to be in law enforcement. So that was his dream. He wanted to protect and serve. He always wanted to do that.
Yes, he always wanted to be a law enforcement, a cop in California.
Wow.
And that was one of the reasons we came here, so he could become a cop.
Well, let me deal directly with the fact, and you heard the comments of then Governor Jerry Brown dismissing the fact that the sanctuary state status of California had anything to do with this. But the reality is the individual that killed your brother was already in the justice system. And because of the sanctuary laws, that prevents the state of California from informing ICE, handing over on the release date of their prison sentence, handing over to ICE that individual for deportation and enforcement of federal law. Does that make it even more bitter for you? It's hard to lose your brother, but when you find out we had him, he should have been deported, and he was protected by a state law.
So yeah, we wake up with anger that this could have been preventable. I wasn't aware of what sanctuary state and this rules and regulation meant, but I was explained how it worked. But yeah, it could have been preventable. We wake up with anger that you know, he should have been deported in the first place, but he wasn't due to the sanctuary law we have in California.
Yeah. I know this is fresh. Like the Corcorans, this is new, this is hard, painful. You're in our thoughts and prayers. I'm so sorry. It sounds like your brother. Everything I've heard, I interviewed the sheriff, I interviewed the police chief out there. They loved your brother. He was a great cop. They're just devastated themselves. So you're in our prayers. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, and the best to your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let me go to Maureen Maloney. You had a son, Matthew. How old was Matthew?
Matthew was 23 years old. He had just graduated college. He had dreamed of being a police officer.
By the way, when your kid graduates college, you're proud of yourself, right? Oh, finally, I got, you know,
Yeah.
We're on our way, right?
The last picture I have with him is at his graduation. Matthew dreamed of becoming a police officer, and when he was buried, the police chief buried him with a police badge, knowing that was his dream.
Wow, that's...
Matthew was riding his motorcycle home in a residential area. Nicholas Squamman, the illegal alien, was unlicensed. He had spent his day drinking. He was driving around with his 5-year-old son in the truck with him. He ran through a stop sign, causing Matthew to collide with the truck. Matthew landed on the hood of the truck and rolled off. And Matthew survived that collision, according to experts at the trial and witnesses, because it was a low-impact collision. But Nicholas Squamman decided to flee, and when he did, he ran over Matthew. Matthew became trapped in the wheel well, and he was...
So he would have lived had he not then gone back to make sure he killed him.
Right. He had scrapes and contusions from the initial impact. Matthew got caught in the wheel well.
And he has a 6-year-old son is involved in this?
Yes, in the truck with him. And Matthew was dragged a quarter of a mile to his death. This was in a residential area, so there were people pounding on the truck pleading with him to stop. He fled. At one point, he went over a curb, and Matthew became dislodged, and then he backed up over Matthew again and continued to flee.
He does all this, and I read he got 12 years in jail? 12 years in jail? You kill him, and then you make sure you kill him again. And that's all. Why not the death penalty for that?
And, you know, he was originally charged with second-degree murder, but the judge found him guilty of vehicular homicide. But he'll be getting out of jail in August. You know, in Massachusetts, where this occurred, you get your sentence reduced by 30% for good behavior, so he'll be getting out in August.
Let me go to Sabine. Your son Dominic was killed again by a drunk driver. And you have taken the pain of all of this with others, and you are advocates for the crime.
Yes.
And, for example, DJ and Wendy, this is a support group, a group that you never want to be a part of, but you've been able to help a lot of people.
I reached out to Avery, to their daughter, and we've been speaking since this happened. And I'm a legal immigrant, and I came from Germany with Dominic, who called himself German Chocolate. We came over, and I had a little card that read resident alien. And I didn't mind it because I knew that's what it takes to come here. And then it took me about 6 years to become a citizen. Mm-hmm. Dominic was my only child, love of my life, my best friend.
That's just his son on the companion.
There. And also,
you guys all have great-looking kids, I will tell you. I mean, and wonderful kids. Every one of your kids, they're all good kids. College, working for money for college. You know, it's unbelievable. Let me ask you this. So he was a 9/11 dispatcher, 911 dispatcher.
For the Sheriff's Department.
He wanted to be a police helicopter pilot.
That's right, because he had his pilot's license. He was...
So this guy had 2 prior DUI convictions, and he spent a year in jail?
Not even. He had 2 felonies before that. One was pled down to a misdemeanor, and then he came back drunk driving. He received probation, even though he had no license.
In other words, we had him twice in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, so they had him a 3rd time.
And they knew it was an illegal immigrant.
Yes, it was the same DA that had our case. They let him go on probation. They caught him drunk driving while on probation one more time. And they gave him probation again. And 5 weeks later, he extinguished the spark of divinity in my child. So wow. Nancy Pelosi, that's my message to her.
All right. Speaking of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party, when we come back, we're going to give these moms and dads an opportunity to address them directly about their manufactured crisis They all lost their family members, their kids, their loved ones. We'll have more with the Angel families straight ahead as we continue tonight on Hannity. All right, as we continue with our Angel parents, all having lost loved ones, their children, to illegal immigrants, we only have 5 minutes left. I just want to maybe run through some, it's obviously a big national political debate. What's your reaction to this as a manufactured crisis? What words do you want to say to the president, Nancy, Chuck? What do you say?
I would like to invite Nancy and Chuck Schumer to my son's grave on January 28th so they can celebrate, or not celebrate, cry with me at his grave, at his manufactured grave. This is permanent family separation. What separates me, permanent family separation, like my shirt says. And what separates me and my son is not a fence. It's 6 feet of dirt and a coffin.
How many of you have met the president? So, all of you have. And I remember we did a show during the campaign. I got emotional on that show, and I'm sure you will at some point too. And you're watching the president fight and you're hearing the manufactured crisis. What do you want to say to them, Steve?
You know, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are just hypocrites. And I'm being just flat out honest. It's hypocrite. You yourself have shown video clips of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer telling people, we need this wall. We need to stop the endless...
That's when Obama was president.
Absolutely. So what changed? What? Just because votes? What? Global economy? They're hypocrites. It's disgusting.
What do you say?
Nancy Pelosi's a dingbat. I mean, one week she wants the wall. The next week she doesn't want the wall. She doesn't want to give any money toward it. I think it's, what, 1/10 of 1% of money for the budget.
That's all it is, 1/10 of 1% of the budget. Tiny.
And she won't give it. It's absurd. I think that blood is on her hands. She absolutely took an oath to protect American citizens. She's not doing it. She doesn't even want to try just because she hates Trump. I don't know what's wrong with her. I mean,
are you happy the president's holding the line?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy. And, you know, I've said this before, but I would love the opportunity to stand in front of Nancy Pelosi, mother to mother, and look her in the eye and say, which child of yours or your grandchild of yours would you give up to support this agenda that you're this horrendous lie, the desecration of our children and our loved ones' lives. It's like it's a slap in our face and a kick to our loved one's grave every time she does this. And I want the public to know, and I want Nancy Pelosi to know today, and requested another meeting next week when I'm in D.C.
Yeah, I guess hell
and
will freeze over.
And it was dead silence from her staffer. I said, this is Angel Mom Mary Ann Mendoza. I'd like to request a meeting face-to-face, mother-to-mother with Nancy Pelosi about this situation. Dead silence, and the staffer said, no, I'll put you through. You can leave a voicemail. So this is how Nancy Pelosi is.
I did ask her that very question.
Yes.
On the town hall. I asked her, Nancy, you know, I told her what happened to Josh, and, you know, I said, which child, you know, could you sacrifice for this? And, you know, she just glazed over and, oh, we're praying for you. And, but I just need to let you know that every person in our sanctuary city is a law-abiding citizen.
Let me ask about the media. I've just played. The media echoes the exact words of what the Democrats are saying. Manufactured crisis. I'm sure you guys all watch TV, right? Well, hopefully you don't watch fake news, but...
John, can I show you this?
Yeah.
For Nancy Pelosi, I have my only child's ashes in this urn. I carry his ashes in a little locket. This is the last time I got to touch my child. That's in the morgue. Those are his bruised, cold, dead hands with me touching him and kissing him the last time. And she doesn't just have blood on her hands, she needs boots, because that blood is rising. She's knee-deep in it. And if she doesn't get with the president to end this, she's going to need boots all the way up to her thigh, because it's getting worse. They need to get it.
Are you angry with the media?
Yeah.
That they use the words? Tough week for you. Well, just watching all this and hearing the same words every day. I thought liberals were so compassionate.
Yeah, whatever.
It's not Trump's fault.
No.
Is this manufactured?
No. No, it's not.
This is preventable. Yes. This is preventable in our country.
When the sanctuary state-city issue, where you can't, criminal aliens, not just people that came here that want a better life, in jail, they let them go and basically assist them. out the door so they don't get deported?
I think I'm the only one in this crew that got justice through the criminal court system for Joshua. I don't think anybody else has done that, and thank you, Texas, for that. But I mean, it does have some sort of that, you know, he's there for a long time. But other than that, I don't think anybody else really got justice.
I've got to say, we're going to end this here. I want to personally come over and thank you so
35 days.
I know, it's unbelievable. Thank you. I'm sorry so much. Really, I'm the pain. I know. So good to see you again. You're so strong. I hope you get that meeting. Your daughter's so beautiful, really, and your son,
Sean,
same.
thank you. And this is not Trump's wall. This is America's wall.
Right. We can have a door too.
Yeah.
We just want to vet
Come in
you.
legally, like we all
Thank you,
did.
Steve. Thank you. Your son Grant, amazing. So good to see you. Thank you so much. I know this is the hardest time for both of you. This just happened the 29th of December. You're in our prayers, okay? Always. Thank you for sharing your story. I hope America hears, and more specifically, I hope these idiots in D.C. listen. And the president, I think he's going to hold the line, and he'll do it one way or another.
You'll be more proud of